There's a LinkedIn report that says that the number one reason why people leave their jobs, why they quit their jobs, is because of a toxic workplace culture. That's right. So they don't leave necessarily because the salary is bad. They might even stick around if the salary is bad, if there's a great workplace culture. But if the workplace culture is toxic, it is the number one reason why people quit their jobs. So you've got these employers losing awesome employees to toxic workplace culture. So if that's the number one reason, why isn't workplace culture the top priority of leaders? We're going to dive into that today. Hey guys, it's Kara List, your leadership coach, and welcome to the Culture Keepers podcast, where we are discussing topics that will empower you to lead thriving workplace cultures where your team members are happy and high performing. You know, as leaders, it's easy to find ourselves in seasons of overwhelm and burnout and stress and all the things that make working and leading hard. And my hope is that this podcast will empower you to take a hold of your leadership, that it will bring you energy, it will help you find success by encouraging you here. So welcome. I am so excited. This is episode number 1. So thank you for being here. Excited for you to join me on this journey as we learn together. And so before we dive into talking about toxic workplace cultures and ways to avoid that today, I have something for you. I have a gift for you. So if you've ever been in a situation where you've hired someone and on paper, they're like total rock stars. You're like, yes, best accountant I've ever seen. Smartest, you name the job skill you've ever seen. And then you hire them and it's not long before you really start to feel that tension of, this person just isn't the right fit for our team. Their work preferences are different than ours. They're not adding value to our culture. We just don't align. And it's just a bad situation for everyone. Raise your hand if you've been there. Most of us, all of us have probably been there. And it's just, puts you in a bad spot, right? Because then you got to figure out what to do next. The better situation, the solution is just to hire better, right? Is to find ways to break through that skill set, those competencies, and really get to the heart of, does this person align with our values? Does this person add to our culture as an organization? So I have a list of the 30 surefire questions that you can ask in an interview so you make sure you're hiring the team member that is just the right fit for your team. And I have that linked below, so go ahead and grab that freebie just for you. So today we're going to answer the question, what is a culture keeper after all? What's a culture keeper, Kara? Why is your podcast called that? Well, before we can talk about what a culture keeper is, I just want to kind of level set about my definition of workplace culture. So my definition is how we do our work and how it makes us feel. So it's not just the vibe, right? It's not just the vibe. It's how we do our work and how it makes us feel. So when you walk into a Chick-fil-A, which I walk into Chick-fil-A's often or drive through Chick-fil-A's often, you can feel the health of that culture, right? You can tell that this is an organization that has been really clear about its mission and really clear about its values and really clear about its employee benefits. And because of that, you've got this great product. And so the customer can expect that. You walk into a Chick-fil-A and what do you expect? You don't even think about it. You expect it to be clean. You expect the bathrooms to be clean. You expect the food to be the consistent quality that it always is, which is good. You expect timeliness, right, in the delivery. You expect a happy worker who will tell you that it is their pleasure to serve you. These are things that you have come to expect because the expectations for those employees are clear, right? This is how we serve our people. This is what's expected. And therefore, what do you get? You get results, right? You get a Chick-fil-A that everyone wants to go to. Now, if you walk into a Burger King, I can guarantee you your experience is going to be different. And now look, I'm not knocking Burger King, okay? Maybe a little bit. But if you walk into Burger King, at least in my experience, I don't feel a sense of culture. I don't walk in and be like, wow, this place feels like they're a team and they're working for me, right? You walk in, you're like, these people do not want to be here. The quality of the food isn't great. My experience from one Burger King to the next is going to be totally different. So the product ends up being different because the culture isn't great, right? So we often think of culture as a vibe, or we think about it as putting ping pong tables in the workroom, right? Like, oh, you see all these cool companies these days, right? They're like, come work for us. You get a massage every week, and we put ping pong tables in the workroom. And I'm not saying that those places don't have great workplace culture. They probably do. But what I'm saying is adding a ping pong table to your workroom is not going to solve your culture issues in your workplace. It is a Band-Aid, right? It's not actually curing the disease. It's not at all. So every company has a culture. It just does. It's either a good culture or it's a toxic culture. It's either a growing culture or a deteriorating culture. But that's what I want to kind of lay the groundwork for is company workplace culture is how we do our work and how it makes us feel. So now that we have an understanding for culture, workplace culture, what is a culture keeper? Okay, I am not a gardener. If you know me personally, you know I'm not a gardener, okay? So I used to live in Virginia, and I wasn't a gardener there because it was too stinking humid. I didn't want to be outside in the summer, and even if I did, weeds grow everywhere, bugs eat your plants. This is not my experience. This is the experience of the people I have great respect for, who I see trying to grow things in Northern Virginia. Just didn't look fun for me. I knew I'd probably fail because I kill houseplants. So I have this desire, right? I do. I have this desire to be a gardener. I want my kid, not to be a gardener. I have a desire to experience things growing, especially for my kids, right? I would love for them to see the process of like the seed and how it grows. And wow, we like put our hands to the soil and then like we ate cucumbers that we grew, right? So like they never neglect to remember that things don't just show up in grocery stores. Like someone put hands to the dirt. I would love to see that process. So didn't do it in Virginia. In January, we moved to Central Oregon. If you don't know, Central Oregon is the high desert. So I'm just not confident in my ability to make something grow in the high desert. There are beautiful mountains, the Cascade Mountains here, and there's a butte. There's lots of buttes. If you don't know what a butte is, go ahead and you can Google that. It's called Black Butte. I can see it from my house, and it has snow on the top. I've been told that once the snow leaves Black Butte, that's when you know it's time to start planting. So we'll see if when the snow, I'll let you know if when the snow goes off Black Butte, if I end up planting anything. The point is, I'm not a good gardener, but even if you are a good gardener, gardeners don't actually make the seeds turn into something, into produce or flowers, right? They provide the best, they control the variables to the best of their ability to provide a conducive environment that helps those seeds do their thing, those little potential filled seeds, right? To become something amazing that we can enjoy and consume. Similarly, right? Leaders, you want a great product, you want to see your team thrive, you can't be the one to physically make it happen. And we spend so much time focusing on the metrics, focusing on the revenue, focusing on the performance, focusing on asking our people to do it the exact way we want, or really just trying to micromanage or control the work or ignore the work altogether. You have both ends of the spectrum. But my point is, if you could provide a conducive environment in all aspects, right? Seeds don't just have one variable that has to be right? The soil, the water. Guys, I'm not a gardener. Those are like the two variables I know. The snow has to be off Black Butte, okay? All the variables coming together, it's so similar in the workplace. And so if you want a team that is happy and high performing, which you should, because these people, your employees, are humans, and so you should care about them, right? You should want this because you care about them. You should want this because you want your organization to thrive, but also because your company culture, your workplace culture, and I mean your company's culture, but I also just mean amongst your employees, right? Because if you're an organization that you have a staff and then that staff, services a bunch of other people, there could be a down the line company culture, but it all starts right there in your staff. If that culture is healthy, if that culture is helpful, it has ripple effects on your community. So it is not just about what you are doing in your walls, in your workrooms, in your meetings, even just for your customers, your patrons. that culture has ripple effect. So here's what I mean. If you have a family, you have a family culture, right? Like you've established a family culture, whether you know it or not, whether you think about it or not, your family has a culture. And if you're a parent, then you are the culture keeper, right? You're the one adjusting the variables so that your little humans can thrive. But once they thrive, what's the goal? The goal, my goal, is that they leave, that they go and they become culture keepers in the spheres of influence they have, that they become leaders. And so that is a ripple effect of my culture keeping. It is making an impact on culture that they will affect, that then the people they affect will affect. Do you see? It is a ripple. And your organization has the same potential. You care well for your people. You build a healthy workplace culture. When they leave you, when they succeed and they leave you to go on to better things, then guess what? They carry that culture with them. And your culture makes an impact that has a ripple effect. And this is why culture keeping matters. This is why, ready? This is my prickly point. Sorry if this hurts. Not sorry. Is that if you want to have a successful, thriving organization and you are a leader, you have to see your primary role as being a culture keeper. It just has to be how you see your primary role. So if your culture is not great right now, okay, let's say it's not great. I want to stop for a second and say, it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. This is not a moment for me to look at you and say, shame on you for leading a toxic workplace culture, right? That is not at all what I'm saying. I have been a leader of organizations where the culture has been better at times and worse at times. And those variables might have not been my fault or in my control, but they were my responsibility, right? And so if you are hearing this and you're thinking, well, great, I'm failing, right? Like I'm not culture keeping or my culture isn't awesome. I just want to say that by acknowledging that, that is the first step towards that turnaround that's going to push you into health in leading your workplace. So that's a great step. And I just want to encourage you in that. I want to say, yes, acknowledge that. There doesn't have to be guilt. There doesn't have to be shame. We can call it what it is and we can continue forward. Okay, so I have 3 takeaways for you today. 3 things that you can walk away with that you can do this week. Number 1, take 10 minutes. That's all. 10 minutes. And evaluate the state of your workplace culture. And you might be the leader of your organization. You might just be an employee, but that's okay. You have impact on your culture as well. You can contribute. If you're not the leader, you can lead up. We'll talk about that in another episode. But I want you to take 10 minutes and just think about the state of your culture. Acknowledge it for what it is. And then the second thing I want you to do is when you have one-on-one meetings this week, any one-on-ones you have, I'd like you to ask the question, what would make working here be easier for you and what would make you happier, right? Just be willing to ask the question, encourage honesty, and have humility when they give you the answers. They might give you answers that you like and they might give you answers that you don't, but that's okay. You're willing to ask the question, what would make working here easier for you and more enjoyable for you? And the third thing is I want you to take 10 minutes to think of 2 practical ways you can add value to your team this week. And here's what I mean by 2 ways. The first one is how you can make your people feel like they're valued, right? And this is as simple as writing a thank you note or even just saying it to the person. The way you bring your A game every week to these meetings or the way you get that email sent out and it is just so it's right every week, it's on time, whatever it is that you can say or do to add value, to let that person know that you value them. And then the second value add is to find a tangible way or just a really intentional way to remind your team that the work that they do is valuable, okay? That together, you guys do something that is valuable. And that can be an impact story. It can just be a way you see growth on your team. It can be the way you've been encouraged by the metrics, by the growth, by how they've overcome the odds or difficulties or different situations. So a way in which you can remind them not only are you valuable, but what we do here together is valuable. Okay, so you got it. You're going to consider the state of your workplace culture. You're going to ask that question in your one-on-ones, and you're going to find 2 ways to add value. That is it, Culture Keepers. Okay, I hope you feel that challenge. If you heard something today that was a truth bomb for you, that was a great takeaway, that really hit you harder than other things, will you let me know? If you're watching this on YouTube, will you drop that in a comment for me? And if you're watching this, or if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, Apple or Spotify, would you mind just leaving me a rating and a review? It would just mean so much for me to know that this is valuable to you, that this is helping you. We've got so much more to dive into in our leadership journey together. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. You guys are awesome. Talk to you next time.